Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Confronting the Line, where we explore the fine line between transformation and exploitation in service of creating a safer and more ethical self-help space. Over the last year, I've heard many deeply personal stories from people who've been involved with Landmark and other similar organizations. I've chosen not to share most of these details publicly because they aren't my stories to tell. In my own experience, I did not directly witness or endure the kinds of inappropriate behavior and abuse that others have described. And it's also true that during my time there, I saw that most staff members and program leaders were genuinely good-hearted people committed to making a difference. You'll hear my guests today share their perspective on that, and also how the organization at times weaponizes its own work to exploit cheap labor. That's an understanding that's emerged as more of us have started speaking honestly about what was happening behind the scenes. I've also heard from many leaders who took abuse upon themselves in order to protect graduates. That's real. But there was also a culture, perhaps misguided, that kept us silent about the darker side. We told ourselves if people knew the truth, they might lose their transformation. I've come to see that's just not accurate. Transformation is not something someone else can give or take away. Whatever transformation you experienced in a Landmark program or any similar program was yours. It came from you, from your own engagement with the ideas and the material. And yes, much of that material draws on powerful, positive concepts, many of them unacknowledged. But here's the thing. Healing cannot happen in darkness. It cannot happen in silence. And it cannot happen when we hide the truth. So when today's guests, Kyla and Jennifer, came to me and said, we want to tell the truth as we experienced it, I said yes. And I will always say yes to that. I also invited my partner and producer, Tony, to join this conversation because he was a staff member at the same center or office where Kyla and Jennifer worked. You'll hear more about that as we go. Our hope is that these stories will help others to know they're not alone, that it's okay to talk about these experiences, and most importantly, that speaking up can inspire change. Some of what you hear today may be upsetting. Take breaks if you need to. It may contradict your own experience. That's okay. Hold on to the transformation you had. It's still yours. And also allow yourself to listen to their truth because both can be true. Thank you.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or mental health advice. We speak from our personal experiences and opinions. The views expressed are solely those of the individual speaker and are not intended to malign any group, club, organization, or business.
All right. Well, welcome everybody back to Confronting the Line, where we literally confront the line between exploitation and transformation. We come to the line to look and see what's light, what's dark, what's helpful, what's harmful, what's good, what's bad in the world of personal development and transformation. And I'm super excited today to have with me. So first of all, I got Tony on camera because our subject and topic today is he's a key player in it. And I have with me today Jennifer and Kyla, two amazing women that reached out to me after one of our other interviews. All three of these guys were staff members for Landmark Worldwide in the LA Center. And at one point or another, and Kyla, you were actually a staff member at two different centers in California, correct?
Yes, Newport Beach as well.
Newport Beach. Gotcha. So, and both Kyla and Jennifer and, Tony to an extent have all reached out to me since my book came out and came to a point where they were like, I want to tell what it was really like. And, here at Confronting the Line, I'm committed to creating the space for that because that's honestly what we haven't had as former program leaders and staff members of this organization, and not just Landmark, but I'm going to shout out to the others, Context, Insight. There's a lot of training and development companies that use that kind of LGAT, large group awareness format, seminar training companies, and similar kinds of exploitation and abuses happen with all that work. And that's what we want to expose, not because we hate transformation. I love transformation. That's actually why I want to expose the ways in which it gets misused and abused and gets weaponized. And as y'all have heard me say before, that happens a lot as you step into accountabilities In other words, you step into roles in which your job is to be the scion for transformation, as it were. And all three of you were on staff. So I want today to kind of be a little bit of a window for our guests into what happens if we all got together at a social event. Like if y'all ever went to a social event with a bunch of landmarkians, as my daughter would call us, past or present, we'd sit around a table and we'd start telling our stories. And the one thing that's changed since my book came out is there's a little bit of space now to tell the tough stories, not just the happy stories, but all of what it was really like to be a staff member. So that's what we're here today, is to share our stories and to just talk about that. And, we'll let our viewers decide for themselves what they think about that.
And so,
Um,
and just quickly, I know that I've said that multiple times throughout different interviews that, like, if you get enough staff members together, they'll always tell stories, and it's never pretty. I mean, I've never gotten together with a bunch of staff members and it'd be like, oh, it was this magical experience. It's never been pretty. But what
mm,
I do find is that a lot of times, even though in the corners they're telling one story, publicly they're still telling the other story, the more positive story. I'm not saying that's the case here, but I've had interactions with former staff who were like, internally they'll talk amongst each other like, yeah, it was horrible, it was all this, it was all that. But as soon as you get outside of, like, and you're outside of the quote unquote protected bubble, all of a sudden it's like, no, Landmark, it's like the same talking points. Landmark is great, it was
yeah.
magical, it was transformational, la 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 la. I just wanted to point that out, just put that out there, because I know that that's happened. I've watched it happen multiple times. I may or may not have participated in it myself. I can't really remember.
I'm sure we all did. I mean, my whole book for me was like, okay, wait, I got to tell the truth. And then post that, I've had so many people come to me, and I've been in a whole other level of crisis with now hundreds of people that have told me about the dark side. And it's been a lot to sift through. And so I'm really grateful, particularly for Kyla and Jennifer, and Brandon now's come on, and Brian Nord, and more people are stepping up to say, "Hey, yeah, there's some good stuff here, but there's also a lot of pain. And we can't heal from the pain if we can't be heard. If it all has to be stuffed and covered and like that. And that's curious, Tony. I'm going to come back around to that because I think that you made an important point there, which we'll come back to. Why? Why is it like that? Why are there two stories, the public story and then the private story? But today is about bringing the private stories public. And that's what Confronting the Line is all about. So as we can learn, we can do better. We really can do better. I believe it. And we must do better. So let me just start a little bit with, I want to kind of hear from each of you so the first thing we would always start with, what's your creds? What are your landmark creds, right? And Tony, I'm just going to start with you really quickly. Like,
Sure.
so what was your staff tenure and
Yeah,
where?
so I started off Landmark as a staff member as the finance manager in the Los Angeles Center, got promoted to the production one manager at the LA Center, was fired from LA, moved to San Francisco, and was hired on as a special projects project manager in San Francisco at the world headquarters. And I worked there under, like, in various departments like HR, and in I was one of the people that was responsible for direct access when that was a thing, and I was also involved with the implementation of Lisa worldwide. So I was one of the
And
implementation.
Lisa is, I'll just do some translating. So Lisa
Sure.
is the internal data system,
Yep.
right?
It's how Landmark does all of their business. It's kind of like
Gotcha.
their CRM and their marketing tool, and everything that revolves around how business operates runs through Lisa
Yeah,
with regards
gotcha.
to the staff. So I was the person who was implementing it worldwide. I translated the requirements from the centers to what that looked like for the developers to go and actually develop it. I also managed, like, the localization into a couple of different languages for Lisa. So just a lot of special projects, just little bits and pieces everywhere.
Okay.
And I trained a lot of people as well, just because I had my hands in so many different pies. I was a trainer. That was just what I did.
So you worked in both the centers, which is like the local offices
Yep.
that graduates and participants would come to, and the world headquarters office, right? Which was
Yep.
the main office of the primary organization, which
Yep.
is closed now, but it was run out of San Francisco.
Yep.
Did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay.
And then as far
Okay.
as, like, my assisting side, I was also a seminar leader in the San Francisco Center.
You were a seminar leader? I don't know if I ever knew that.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. All right. So, and that's again, I'll just do translating for those that might be listening that aren't familiar with the whole landmark, ecosystem. But that's the first level up in terms of becoming a forum leader or program leader is typically you lead introductions and then you lead seminars. So, okay, great. Thanks, Tony. All right, Jennifer, how about you? What are your
Where my creds? Where my creds?
creds, your landmark creds?
So, I was initially a introduction leader program coach for a lot of years, from 2007 until 2010, and I went on staff in 2009 and to 2012 as the landmark communicator. I did a short stint inside of the program, uh, like in 2007 or 2008, to do ILP fulfillment for a couple programs also. Yeah, I just sat in that desk 12, 14 hours a day and talked to 25,000 people a year. That's all.
That's all.
Nothing much.
That's
That's
it.
all.
6 days a week.
I
Yeah.
turn lives inside of a 5-minute conversation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. That's the hottest of the hot seats. Anything that
That
is
is.
around registration is
Yeah.
probably where my husband was a registration manager for a long time, then a center manager. And that registration manager, there's just nobody in the organization that has more heat than those guys.
Yeah. I did over $650,000 a year in form registrations alone. And then because people were at their desks, I also filled other programs too. So
Wow.
after 5 o'clock, almost all the calls came through. So I did advanced course registrations and yeah,
Yeah.
not my
Wow.
job. Not my job.
$650,000 a year. That's amazing. And just, are you comfortable revealing what your salary was for that?
I think I was being paid $14 an hour. I wasn't salary, I was hourly.
But you were, interesting. And then, so did you have the overtime thing
I
as
got
well?
overtime, and then if I didn't meet my goal, if I had a weekend where I worked on a Saturday, or if I left on a Friday and I had a weekend off, I didn't meet my goal, I would still work off the clock to make sure I had my goal by end of business on Sunday.
And what was a full-time week considered in terms of hours?
Well, let's see here. When I found out that my registration was being stolen in the morning, I took the bus from North Long Beach. So it was bus, train, bus to the center, and then walk, bike, train, bus, or walk. So my commute was anywhere from hour to an hour and a half to 2.5 hours going home. So,
Wow.
and if I missed my bus, I'd have to walk or hopefully get a ride to the train station because it was not a great area by LAX. But yeah, so 7 a.m. until 9, 10 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday.
Gotcha.
And sometimes later if they wanted me to go, when the seminars was letting out, they wanted me to go hit people up for registrations or leads. Really all
Well,
about getting leads.
it's interesting to me. You're one of the few. So usually what I've heard in terms of the employment structure is there'll be the typical that a full-time was considered 68 hours, I think 62, 68 hours, something like that. But when you look at the pay stubs, on hourlies, you would see the hourly rate and then you would see with overtime. So I'm curious if you got that overtime over 40 hours because I'm not doing the
Yes.
math really quickly, but
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
did. Okay.
Oh yeah. I was very on top of it. Yeah, I'd been a manager for other organizations, other brand, not trash branches, other companies. But yeah, no one
So
would take.
over 40 hours, you would be making somewhere around 21 an hour. Yeah. Okay. In Los Angeles. So, in
In
Long
Los
Beach.
Angeles.
Yeah. So, okay, great. Thank you, Jennifer. And Kyla, how about you? What are your staff creds?
So I
Leader.
first worked at the Newport Beach Center. It's actually in Irvine, but they call it the Newport Beach Center for whatever reason. And I worked there about a year and a half. I was the production manager and then was moved to Landmark Form Registration Manager. I did that for about 6 months. So I think I did the production manager for a year, then I did registration manager for 6 months. They moved me because I totally was unsuccessful as a registration manager, but extremely successful as a production manager. I did not want to be the registration manager, but I agreed to do it and then massively failed within like the first 3 months. So then it strung out to 6 months. They're like, go to the LA Center and we'll give you a job where you're not managing anything. And I'm like, okay, that makes no sense, but sure. So now in LA, I'm the seminar communicator And I think I started as the production manager for all their communications courses. So if you can imagine, like in Newport Beach, you're the production manager for everything. You go to LA, it's so huge and there's so much volume there that my whole job was to only fulfill the production teams for the communications courses, which I thought that's weak. Like I could do that. Started to fail, but then got it down. Like got it down, was productive. I got it. I had it solved. And then they moved me to seminar communicator. And that's the person who basically calls people up and tries to get them to take a seminar that they already paid for. And super exciting work. But actually it was because, you're always talking to people about what's possible for them. So that was really exciting actually. But I'm being sarcastic because I'm pretty pissed off about like how it was to be on staff and I want people to know about it. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
so then after that, I was the seminar communicator. I gave 6 months to that I was going to leave the company and they gave me 2 weeks. In those 6 months, they only gave me 2 weeks to train a person who I told them not to hire because he wasn't a good fit at all. And then he ended up quitting within 2 weeks of me giving them 6 months notice that they require you to do as a staff member. If you leave the company, you have to give 6 months notice. Let's talk about the pay. I was working 80 hours or more a week. So we're talking 9 a.m. sharp or earlier to 11 p.m. or midnight salary Monday through Friday. Then on Saturdays, with the exception of one Saturday off, 10 to 6, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Working like a dog for 32 to 34. I can't remember what the number was. It's so damn low. Didn't matter. $1,000 a year. So if you do the math on that, I refuse to do it because I'd be horrified even more than I already am. It's like less than minimum wage back then, which was like, I think I left in 2009 or something.
Mm.
And yeah, and so that's all I have to say for that section.
What a couple of things there. So you mentioned, so as the person doing production for communication, your job was, so like, 'cause a lot of people think production are like setting chairs, da da da. But the manager's job, if I understand it correctly, is actually to fill teams. So, right. So of volunteers. And at one time, Landmark boasted a volunteer body of around 40,000, 44,000, or something. Nobody knows what it ever is actually, but it's a lot of people. So was that primarily your job? And how did that, there's a leadership program inside of the communication area, team management and leadership program. Were you filling the TMLP, team management leadership, or were you just filling production teams for those weekend programs?
Only the teams, not team management leadership program. My manager did that.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And what you're talking about, you are on the phone calling up people who have done the landmark courses and trying to get them to assist for like several hours a day for several days in a row. Like let's say the course is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then there's an evening session on a Tuesday night for communications. That's easy for me. I was used to filling advanced courses that last all week, and so the communication courses, you're literally like calling people up and telling them how great it's going to be, that they're basically working for free and they're going to get the course because they're in the room, but they're really, if they're in the room, it's very stressful. They're like at the leader's beck and call for anything. They're being told what to do at all times, and it's not what it's cracked up to be, but people would put all this stuff at stake. Like if I assist, my intention is I'm going to get my dream job, or I'm going to do, and so I would work on that with people,
Mm.
phone call, and that's what had me in my chair. That's really what inspired me. And I saw people get a lot of results, like, and because they did that, they did
Yeah.
it. And then they were in the room, and then that could have helped, and maybe that empowered them or whatever. And they felt like they're volunteering to, again, this whole thing about we're changing the world. I mean, I was a staff member so that I could be a landmark forum leader so that I could then change the world. But I got sidetracked because staff members like, you're going to go like backwards and get abused. And then you're going to like feel bad that you're a horrible person. And then you're going to try to do better and do better and better and better. And it's never enough. And you did better because you have the stats, you have the results. And then it's just like, it's just this bottomless pit of despair, like,
Mm.
and just failure, even though you might not be failing, but you feel like you are because you're being shamed by your managers and people that you idolized when you were participating in the program.
Okay, we're going to come back to that shamed bit. I want to hone in a little bit on the thing you started, which is why. Because I'm sure, like somebody listening, especially if they don't know the landmark world, is like, why the hell would people do that? Why would they work 80 hours a week? Why would they work for minimum wage or less, leaving their families? Why would you bike, bus, train, walk, da 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 da? So I'd love to kind of just hear a little bit from each of you. What was your why? Like, why did you say yes to being a staff?
For me,
If you can even remember it now. Yeah, Tony, go for it.
I'll start. I can remember I was in, I remember the moment I decided that I was going to go on staff. Like the moment was, I was in the second weekend of the Introduction Leaders program. And, I even remember who I was sitting next to because we both looked at each other. We're like, we're going on staff. We had the exact same moment, the exact same conversation at the exact same time. But there was one of the Japanese forum leaders was in the center and he was being trained. Like he was still an apprentice. I don't know what the levels of landmark forum leaders, but he was being trained. He wasn't like cleared to lead yet. And essentially, he learned English to the point where we could understand him in about a month to be able to become a landmark forum leader, right? And so I was like, dude, if they could do that, like they can do anything was kind of like the thought that I had. And that was the reasoning for myself. I was like I can have literally anything. I can be anything. I can like do anything. And that was the thing that had me go on staff. That was why I wanted to go on staff. And then while I was there, I was like, oh, I want to be a center manager. I want to lead a center, a region, whatever. And that was the thing that kind of kept me coming back. But ultimately,
Got
it's just some, I just got like, it was just like a moment that I just got really inspired by something. And I was like, I want whatever that is. Whatever that is. I don't know what that is. Whatever it is, I want it is what was the thought process for me.
Yeah, I love the term. You've used this a few times before, but like chasing the dragon, right? Which is
Yeah.
say drug addict term, but that is kind of how it feels like, wow, okay, I'm really inspired. I'm like, whatever that is.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. And yeah, and it's all making a difference in some, I mean, it
Yeah.
aims towards that, right? So that's a consistent thing actually across all these kinds of groups. Scientology is clearing the planet, Landmark is transforming the world. Like they all have their thing. Anyway, you all
Well,
know.
I mean, even now, I'm still like my decisions in life are still kind of guided by where can I make a difference? Like where can I
Mhm.
kind of that's just kind of like so it wasn't
The
landmark.
authentic part,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
that's the when I talk about sort of Chris Sheldon uses this term weaponized empathy, like
Mhm.
where they, groups like this, high control groups like this will sort of use that desire. And, it's not like we didn't get to fulfill it from time to time. So we'll talk about that too. All right, Jennifer, how about you? What had you, is anything the same? Would you add to that different? What had you?
so it was a hot seat. It was a powerful seat. I got in some of my conversations, people would come in and say, I did the forum. You saved my life. Like, people come in and there's that kind of gratification. Like, okay, I'm, sometimes you make a difference. You don't know the difference you make. And sometimes you do. And that is the level of satisfaction of knowing that you've made such a difference in someone's life kept me in that chair.
Mm,
And it was already aligned with how I was raised. I was raised in a very new agey household. With my mom was feeding me wheat germ before it was popular. Wheatgrass, wheat germ, all that. Here, take this. I'm going, why? Because it's good for you. It's like, So I was always raised inside of an environment about doing for others. So it was just, even though I resisted doing the form for 7 years, because of my partner's mom's, if do the lemon form because you love me. It's like, oh no, bye. You cannot talk about this in my household anymore. And then, of course, my partner did the lemon form. And that's like, oh crap, now I got to do it. Great. But yeah, a lot of it was aligned with, of course we're gonna make people better. And then you get in the seat and there's, there was the good and there was a lot of bad. Um, you know, uh,
right.
and it got very, very dark, and we can go into at some point
We
how
will.
dark it got for me. Um, but what drew me into it was I'm gonna I'm gonna make someone's day today. I'm gonna
Mm,
keep someone from doing something stupid. I'm gonna make someone's day today. and it
Do you
was,
feel like you fulfilled that? Like, do you I mean, now
I
knowing what you know now, like, and having that like, I've been really dealing with, like, looking back 26 years. Did it really
mhm.
make the difference? You know, I've been really deeply questioning that, and, I'm just curious what you
Yeah,
think about
so one of the women I, registered into the Landmark Forum, actually, several people that I'm still, friends with on Facebook, and every now and then I'll get a message that says, "Thank you for changing my life." So, there's the validation about that part, which kept me in the seat.
Yeah. Well, I love Sarah Edmondson always says this great thing is if there wasn't good stuff there, nobody would go. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
in all of these groups, they're built on good ideas. I mean, by good ideas, I mean ideas that make a difference for human being and the quality of our life and living, right? So, and they're all kind of built on the same ideas. I hate to tell everybody, but you know, there's value there. So I got it. Yeah. So you want to
Yeah,
make
and
that change.
I was doing double-digit increases.
Uh-huh.
I was exceeding measures, so I was highly successful in that position. And then my body started breaking down, and
Mm,
then my mental health started breaking down even worse.
gotcha.
Several times in the hospital and, sitting on the green line waiting to take the last train into work saying, "Is this the day that I'm gonna just end it all because I'm feeling worthless as a human being?" Because one thing that they also say is, "You're worthless as a human being if you cannot get it off in life." So if you miss a result by one, you know, again, like I'm doing ton of registrations they've never seen before, but if I missed my target by one, the level of berate I would get, it's like I'm not, it got in my head so hard that, taking the step off the platform was maybe the best way to go.
I just feel like I need to jump in here because
Go for it.
so my wife, I won't say her name. She's up here, my gorgeous wife, Jennifer. You would absolutely know my wife. You just would absolutely know her because you probably have talked to her on the phone at some point because she was the stats person. She was the worldwide stats person, and so she tells this story. She sometimes tells this story about how some center missed one registration. They were like one off, right? And they're getting she can hear them basically getting berated by Joan in the other office, and then they call her into the office to basically talk about they're like, these numbers have to be wrong, they don't make any sense. I'm not kidding when I tell you that the upper management didn't understand how percentages work. Like, why did this go up by 10% or 1%, or it didn't move at all? Because the San Diego Center only has 8 registrations. New York Center has 152. One registration in New York is not going to make a difference in the percentage, while one in San Diego would make a huge difference in percentage. And they literally could not wrap their mind around that. Like, they just was like, "What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense." And my wife was just like, "I don't know what to tell you. That's like how percentages work. That's how it works." So you have people that are managing someone like you for one registration, making your life hell for one registration, and they literally don't understand the math behind what they're talking about. Like, one is maddening. It's maddening. It's maddening.
When you get yeah, your brains get kinda scrambled on the inside.
We're
So
doing
I
42 to 50 a week, registrations a week, just in my chair, and you
mm.
miss one. It's like, but if I miss 10, they left me off the hook. I'm like, yeah, you're like, right, it doesn't make sense.
Kyla, how about you? We'll come back to some of these points, but Kyla, how about you? Why did you I mean, you kinda told us a little bit, but anything you wanna add to that in terms of why you said yes? Why
Yeah.
you jumped into that? It's the biggest question, by the way, graduates ask all the time because, I've heard a lot of these stories, but I don't consider it my place to retell other people's stories. So until y'all are ready to tell, like they kind of stay in the background. But I hear it all the time from graduates. Well, they said yes to the job.
Right. Yeah. So it was in my advanced course, so I did all the curriculum, the self-expression leadership program, introduction leaders program, but I continued because in the advanced course, I really actually didn't like the landmark forum. My landmark forum leader like yelled at me during one of the breaks and I was like, "What?" And I cried. I was like so scared of her. But in the advanced course, yeah, so in my advanced course, if you'd have to know that before I was like, I think 24 when I started doing landmarks programs, and I was really shy. Like, you could not, I didn't talk to anybody. Like, I'm that person that you would pass in the hallway at work and you'd say hi to the person and they didn't say hi back to you. And you'd be like, what's their problem? But like, I was so in my head that I didn't even know they said hi. Like, I was just like, what? Why are you talking to me? I don't know you. Don't talk to me. Like, I have a really extremely abusive childhood. And did the programs because like my relationships weren't working in my life. I could just see that. And a friend pointed it out to me. She's like, go do this thing. I haven't done it, but everyone talks it, says it's so great. So I did the landmark form. Like I said, I didn't really like it. Then I stuck with it because I knew there was something like that I was able to like gain from continuing, right? And so in my advanced course, I was in this situation where I went to defend somebody that was just getting, like, totally booed. I can't
Mm,
explain it, it would take too long, but they were, like, picking a leader, and we somehow my buddy in the course got picked, and then when she was up on the stage to start the exercise we were gonna do, everyone said, "Well, like, we don't want her to be a leader." And, like, they were just complaining about her, and I knew her story because she was my buddy, so I was like, "Wait, you guys just don't know her, like, if you knew what she went through, you'd, like, love her, so let me just, like, speak up for her." So I raised my hand, and I just started bawling, crying because I was so nervous. I'd never spoken in public before, I was, like, terrified, and I just said, like, she's amazing," and she said, "Don't share my story, I don't want these people to know it, don't talk about me," and she totally shut me down, but the advanced course leader like he said, raise your hand if you're inspired right now. And then the whole room raised their hands. I was like, okay, I don't remember ever being listened to in my entire life.
mm,
I've never spoken up. No one's ever been inspired by me, nor would they admit it. Like all of these things like kind of just happened. And I had this giant, I would call like a huge awakening of like the difference I could make that
mm,
people would even consider listening to me. And at the break, this one guy came up to me and he's like, dude, you could have told us to all leave and we would have done whatever you wanted because we were just so like inspired by what you were saying. So looking back on it, like to answer your question, it was the advanced course leader said, you know, you could be a landmark forum leader. So I was just like, what? Like me? This tiny person who nobody cares about? Like, I don't matter. So what are you talking about? Well, if you say it and you're up on a stage, then maybe I could be that person, right? And I really did tie the making a difference, like kind of this healing the world, like making people get along, like, you know, like this loving utopia world, right? That I believed in those moments. And so I tried to like be a landmark forum leader. And one of the pathways of being a landmark forum leader is to be on staff. And it's
mm.
really like the worst pathway in my opinion, because it just isn't what it's nothing
It
like
almost never happens. I mean, it's just
yeah, I think I don't know how to explain this, but what I'm realizing while I'm talking and sharing is like I think it was like this ego trip. It's about me. It's about me being this leader and then I'm going to change the world and I'm going to help people and I'm going to and people are going to care about me and I'm going to matter and like I came from like this abusive history of like I don't have a say. My dad's the only person who matters and like we do what he says, right? And so I think it was like my first taste of feeling like I mattered, but it was so like ego driven because I didn't have any foundation for it. I don't know. I guess I kind of own that. Like
Sure.
and you ask like why do people do all this? Well, because it's like this performative environment to feel like, to feel good, to feel like we're doing all this greatness and like we're so powerful and humble at the same time. And so like that was the dragon that I was chasing. It was like to get that feeling of like I'm worthy. I'm a good person. I'm important like that. So
gotcha. That's really great, you guys. Thanks for chatting because it's big, it's complicated, you know. And what drives us, and again, I think these are basic things that Landmark is not by any stretch the only group or organization that exploits people's desire to do good in the world. That's been probably the biggest awakening for me that could be exploited. Okay, so that's gets you all there. So let's talk a little bit about what happened. So there you are, you're idealistic, you're going to go on staff, you're going to change the world, you know, whatnot. You're working lots of hours, but who wants to jump in with kind of why are you disillusioned now? What happened? What were some of the key things that, you can look back now and go, okay, that was bad. Like that didn't work or it wasn't consistent. This is another thing. I don't know if we can show this, you guys, but like part of what's challenging is, yes, you think you're making a difference. You do have people, they're having these high, amazing experiences. Dr. John Hunter has started to explain a lot of like what actually happens in a large group awareness training where we get in this kind of hypomanic state and we're like, whoa, you know what? My life has changed. And then some people do go out and change their lives. That does happen. It's a little bit like the lottery. Sometimes it's really good. and sometimes it's not. So we can put all that aside for a sec, but there you are. Now you're on staff. Tell us a little bit about what was it like? What was the day-to-day like of a staff?
I can jump in. So
Okay.
I remember the day, like my first day of work. I just gotten hired. I do want to say, Jennifer, something you talked about how much you were making. I remember during the interview process, the center manager of the LA Center at the time showed me the math behind what I would be getting paid. And it was just this like weird formula of ha 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 ha. I was just like, I no idea what any of this means, but whatever. I'm inspired. I'm gonna do it. But I remember looking back, I was like, that's like super complicated for it's an hourly position that does X, Y, or Z. Like I don't understand what all these like different things mean. But so when I first started, I had no idea how much I was gonna make. No idea. I think it was around 35,000, I think, starting, but I couldn't actually tell you. Not really.
Well, I think we can say nobody goes on staff for the money.
No.
No.
Like Dave
It's
and
not
I had a deal. Only one of us could be a staff member because the other one needed to be making enough money to
Yeah.
support our family. So literally, when I went on staff, he went off staff shortly thereafter.
Yeah, that would have been smart for the wife and I, but so
And living in San Francisco too.
right. So
Oh my gosh.
first day of work, right? I walk in and I'm like, okay, what am I doing? Because there's technically no one there to train me because there was no finance manager. So they had no one there for a while, so there was no one there to train me. So the first thing they were like, okay, what we need you to do is just get on the phone and start filling your team. Like, what are you talking about? What team? Like, I don't know what that means. They're like, yeah, you have a team of people. Like, there's a designated number of people you're supposed to have assisting. There's like a designated number of people that you need to have on a team that's like dependent on the size of the department and the size of the center and that sort of thing, right? In my case, it was I think 14 people that I needed to have the finance department running. Right? And that included like things like running credit cards at the time, because at the time we didn't have where you entered the people's registration right into the program. You had to like write it down, and then I had to go in later and punch it into the little machine thing, and then write the code. Like it was like this whole process. So I had to train people to do that. I had to train people to do the accounts receivable, the account, like anything, any of the accounting stuff they would do. So there were like different positions, and I had to fill that. But I was like, well, who do I call? Like, is there a list for me to call? No, just start calling people. I'm like, but who? Right? So like you're sitting there like it's like the first thing I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to like pull these magic people out of my magic hat of like I don't who am I gonna call? I don't like everyone I know is an IL or a seminar leader or like what I mean? It's like who exactly am I supposed to call? And then there is a list of people who have volunteered to like how they used to say put your name tag in this basket if you want to assist, right? So that list existed somewhere. The problem was that it would get distributed to everyone. So by the time that it was your turn to call somebody, these people don't ever want to hear from Landmark ever again because they've now been called 50 times by 50 different people who didn't know that they had already been called. So you immediately were trying to get a hold of people and trying to like inspire people or re-enroll people re-enroll in the Landmark definition of enrollment. You're trying to re-enroll people in the possibility of Landmark, and they're just kind of like, dude, stop calling me. You've called, like, I've gotten like 9 calls from Landmark just today, and none of you guys even know that you called me. And so you're trying to fill teams with people who are like already like are angry that they've been called 1,000 times. And there's no direction. It's just kind of like just random people just calling anybody. That was my first day. It was kind of like, oh boy, what did I get myself into? Right. Like almost immediately it was kind of like, oh, oof. What they didn't, what I don't think they ever counted on, because I don't think any finance managers at the time had ever done it, was I was able to do that job so fast that I didn't need anyone on my team. Like typically the positions are so large that you can't do it without people who assist. You just can't, right? But for whatever reason, that job was so easy to me. Like it just like worked the way my brain worked. I was just like, oh, this is easy. And within about a month and a half, I was able to do the entire job by myself with no one on my team. The problem was that I needed to have people on my team, even if I could do the job without it, because the thing that's kind of like not talked about of being a staff member is that a part of your job is to train people who assist because like now that I think about it, like thinking about it, knowing what I know now is because you need people to assist to continue to fill the pipeline for everything else. So as a staff member, you need to fill those assisting roles, even if you don't need them, because later on down the road, those people are going to turn into ILP participants. So they're going to turn into TMLP people, or
Ding,
they're going
ding,
to turn
ding.
more senior assisting people later on down the road. I didn't know that at the time. I was just like, well, I don't need to. This doesn't make, I don't need to.
On one side of the line, it's called indoctrination. On the other side of the line, it's called engagement.
Yeah. But here's where it started to get bad, right? Because I got promoted based on how well I was doing, but I lied. I full up made up a team. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to make these phone calls anymore, but I'm going to just tell them that I have a team, because like they're not going to know any different. Like there's nothing that's falling through the cracks. There's nothing that's like everything is getting done. So as long as that's, I don't care, right? So I got promoted to a production job, and all of a sudden now I need people on teams. Like there's no like there is no
Oops.
there is no universe inside of which the production team can be done without people who assist, because like it's all like I was so
Yeah.
how like I was responsible for filling every landmark form and every advanced course with people who assist, right? And like they refused to let me piecemeal it. They were like, you need to have the majority of the people be full time, so that they're like from Thursday setup all the way to the end of Tuesday. Otherwise, they don't count as full time. And there's like all these like rules and stuff. And there's so much. It's just so many programs that like, and you start to run into these like you're having conversations. You spend all this time enrolling and registering people in the landmark sense. You're enrolling and registering people into assisting. And then when you're calling them to confirm, hey, the landmark form's coming up in a couple of days, want to make sure you're all set up. They're like, oh yeah, I can't do that, right? And all of a sudden you're like, well, now I'm missing a full timer. Now I'm missing 2 full timers. Now there's no one on the team. And now I'm like, and so it just became like, and now I got to go tell the landmark forum leader, hey, your team just fell apart. There's no one coming, kind of thing. You know, like all these conversations that you're constantly having to have. And again, you're constantly having to like have all of these conversations about like what they're gonna get. You go, no, just remember, it's gonna be great. You're gonna get all this and that and the other. And then, but it got so bad for me because I was just like, it just kept falling apart. And no matter what I did, I could never get in front of that position. I just couldn't get in front of it. Then it got to the point where now there's nobody on the teams. I have to stay to make sure the center gets locked up. So before you know it, I'm there at 7 a.m. because I need to start making calls early, because at that position I was salaried, so I can work like a dog. They didn't care. So I was in at 7 a.m. and I was leaving the center around midnight every day. So 7 to midnight roughly was my schedule for the time that I was in that position. And little by little, it just got worse and worse and worse. I had a situation where I finally got what they called bypassed. So staff members in the centers will get quote unquote bypassed, which means that the center manager, the manager of the office, will come and do your job at your desk. It's complete performative nonsense. There's no reason that person needs to be at my desk. They're just like, it's just like, we're going to do it at your desk while you, the staff member, go to an assisting cube. So they kick you out of your desk, and there's now someone at your desk so everyone can see why.
Humiliation is a really
Humiliation. No.
common thing. There was one staff member who told me a story of being placed in the center of the center, in the center of the office, and had to sit in a chair and could not get up for like 8 hours while other people did their job. And the manager frequently said, oh yeah, that person's there because they can't do their job. They can't do their job. Like
Yep.
humiliation is one of the tactics that is very normal, unfortunately, in the centers area.
Yeah.
Particularly is what we're talking about. So, wow, that's just,
Oh, there's more, and I haven't even gotten fired yet. I'm on the verge, but I'm not there
But
yet.
wait, there's more.
but Tony, we're going to go for just a second to Jennifer and Kyla because your
Yeah.
internet's halting, but hold that thought. So Jennifer, Kyla, tell us a little bit, just what was it like? What was your day to day like?
You want to go first?
I only want to because I have like a share from what Tony just shared. Like,
Go for
real
it.
quick.
Anything you want. You guys,
But I really think that Jennifer has some crazy stories that, like, I cannot believe I worked at the same time as her and had no idea, and she doesn't know what was happening to me either. But I'll just so when I was newly a production manager in Newport Beach, There was an advanced course, and the advanced course leader was like someone everybody loved. I mean, you ask about him right now, and everybody like, I love that guy. And I thought the same of him too, right? And the person who trained me to be a production manager was like, hey, when you go, we're about to go into a meeting and say, how full are my teams for your advanced course, Mr. Advanced Course Leader? And so the person who trained me was actually really great. And he's like, look, Kyla, when you go in there, like you're missing like a full-time person. You're missing like two of these others, and just make it about how you're gonna get that shit done. Like, just tell them you're gonna do it and to not worry, and you got it. And I was like, okay, what's the big deal? Like, fine, I'll tell him. So we go in the meeting, I let him know. That's the end of it. I was like, whew, got out of there pretty good. Like, I'll just go fill the team. And I come out of the kitchen, like, that I only went into like once a day for 5 minutes, otherwise I'd get my ass chewed. Um, didn't go to the bathroom also. So I'm coming from the kitchen, and the advanced course leader's going into the kitchen, and in the hallway, right in the middle of the center, he goes, fill your fucking teams, Kyla, like that. And I was like, what? Like, how, who did that just happen? I literally felt like when I would be about to get spanked by my own father, and I peed a little bit in my pants because I was that terrified. I mean, I'm like 25 and I'm a woman, and I'm wearing heels at the time, and I'm just like, why is he yelling at me? Like, but this is kind of normal. Like, I'm used to this. Do you see what, like, it's very like, okay, this is the environment I came from. I must have done something clearly wrong. I'm an idiot, and I need to go get to my desk and fill a fucking team. And I don't want to be yelled at like that again. So I'm going to do it. No one saw it. No, that I know of. No one saw that. He did it like right up to my ear and in my face, and really like, like that. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. And then I just went back to work and didn't tell anybody. And that was that. And I filled the teams. Again, it's the performance based on humiliation and shame that you don't want to experience. So if you're from that environment, like, if I know I'm going to get spanked, I'm not going to do what my dad told me not to do. So it's really simple to just get the damn team filled, to not be yelled at and feel that like horrible experience of being yelled at by an adult, gigantic man who's like 7 feet tall, by the way. And so is my dad. So yeah, I don't want to make it
Well,
so
it's also a little
but it
shocking
is.
too, because until then, you've only known these guys as these like funny, entertaining. I mean, sometimes they yell and scream from the stage, but for the most part in our era, that wasn't quite as much of a thing as it was in some past eras. But that's another part about it. Like, you don't, like, you hear this in abusive relationships a lot. Like, they can go from loving to screaming, and it kind of keeps you off balance. Yeah, so that had to have been really shocking. I got it.
Yeah, and go ahead, Jennifer, because your stuff is
Yeah. So I think the first year was fine. 2009 was fine. And then 2010 things started it's about the time that the registration manager, who was a long time registration manager, was getting ready to quote unquote retire. So they're bringing someone else in who is not getting the results that they wanted. And so my results were being affected by still doing double digit increases, still doing over last year's results. I was brought in the office. They sat me down. They said, so where's your integrity out? I'm going, what do you mean, where's my integrity out? Well, you missed this thing, and it's mainly about leads. Like, you don't have enough leads. I'm like, but I have the results. What do you mean I don't have enough leads? Well, where's your integrity out? And they had me sit there and say, where's your integrity out? I'm going, like, dude, I come to work. I'm here all day. I go home and I sleep. And then I do the whole thing over. Where do I have time to have anything else out? It's like, then eventually it's like I had to lie about where my integrity was out just to get out of the fucking office to go back and do my job. It's like, okay, this is the game. I'll just lie about where my integrity is out. Well, let me go back to my job and go to my desk and do my job. And that's what I had to do. But I had a longtime staff member who would come over and sock me in the shoulder, physically abuse me. I would go home with bruises on my ribs from that person poking me, saying, get your fucking results, and physically abuse me. And I wasn't the only staff member that was done to. I've talked to other staff members that had the same experience. But yeah, I would get hit. I would get just verbal abuse. And I had one staff member who was in a wheelchair who would block me from getting out to go use the restroom, to the point where I ended up with an impacted bowel. I was in the hospital for 2 days. the abuse was so bad about causing, you're useless as a human being if you cannot get it off in life. Over and over, hours, so like I was in there for 2 hours with the center managers over and over again. Where it's like, oh, I'm not a good human being. I can't make this work. There's something's wrong with me. One day it was so bad. I looked at her. I said, I just might as well jump off the parking garage. But this is what it is. And she said, go back to your desk. I didn't. I went out the door, down the stairs, across the courtyard, to the elevator, to the top floor of the garage, and looked for some place to jump. It was that bad. It's like, I can't do this anymore. I'm worthless as a human being. I might as well just end it. And I looked down at the ground and said, not high enough. I could possibly survive this. I'll just end up being in worse shape. I was looking down and going, not high enough. It's not high enough. And I couldn't get to the top floor of the building that we're in because there was no access. But and then I went back to work, went down,
And
back across. Yeah.
I asked you when we talked about this, just privately, when you reached out to me. But so in your time, just to be clear for folks, and just for those of you out there listening, it's so brave of Jennifer to share this, but I want you to know she's not alone. I have heard similar stories from dozens of people. So this is not a personal thing either to those abusers or to those staff members. This is a feature, not a bug in this organization. And not only is it costing people their health, their vitality, their whatever, but in my world, it's costing the world transformation. That is the rot that's on the inside. And you can hear already, where's your integrity out? Those the very ideas that you learn in the courses that can be empowering also can be weaponized. And that's what I want to shine a light on, because it happens and people don't think it can happen, including leaders and facilitators. And I know where those leaders and staff members got it, where they learned those tricks. It starts all the way at the top. It's what my book was about, was finding out that, when Werner's staff started coming to me asking for help because they were experiencing physical abuse, learning from you guys that was all through the centers has been heartbreaking, really heartbreaking. But one of the things you shared with me, I asked you, have you felt those feelings, those kinds of ideations after you left staff? Like at any other time in your life, did you ever feel that way, or was that just during that time?
No. In fact, I've never been suicidal. And from 2010 until I left staff, and then a little bit after that, I was suicidal. And my story, I ended up leaving staff because I had was called a TIA, transient ischemic attack, which is kind of like a small stroke. And they weren't sure if it was a stroke or if it was because I was getting migraines. I had a migraine event by February 24th, 2012. I woke up, looked at my face. Half my face was slack. I called my ride when the center staffers was actually giving me a ride at that point to work. And I said, I think I'm having Bell's palsy. I'm going to take a taxi up to Cedars-Sinai and get this handled. And I was there for 3 or 4 days while they tried to figure out what was going on. And this was also before mental health was as big as it is now. In 2012, suicide was not talked about. Definitely not Landmark, let alone anywhere else. Not like it is today. I would, like when you go in the emergency room now, they ask, do you feel safe at home? Do you feel safe in your job? They ask you about your mental health. How are you doing? That wasn't even a question. If you had to ask, in fact, some of the ILP participants, because I've shared this story since, they go, we had no idea that you were in this much pain. It's because I'm good at my job. I'm good at hiding. I eat. I'm good at suppressing. That's one of my...
tell me if you guys felt this. What I felt like and what I wrestled with for a long time before writing my book was, if I tell, it will ruin people's transformation. And even if their transformation was bullshit, if they felt good, I don't want to take that away. I still don't, actually. But on the other hand, the moral injury of being engaged with an organization that was treating people this way under the guise of something else, I felt like I would be complicit. So that was ultimately why I said something and continue to say something, because it's rippled out. There's a lot of people, there's coaches, there's all kinds of people who have done programs like this, who have been on staff, and then they go out. I talked to one woman in a company, a gal who was on a forum leader track, actually got really, really sick, almost died, left, got better, went into consulting, worked in a company, 75-person company, worked with the C-suite, pretty successful company. Anyway, 4 of the people that she coached ended up in mental hospitals after working with her. And, I'm now in a very reputable, very safe and ethical coach, advanced coach training program. And I can promise you that it is not outcome of coaching that somebody ends up having some sort of episode that puts them in a mental health hospital. Like it's not it. Yeah. So I'm starting to wrestle with, is this a feature or a bug? This kind of abuse. What were some of the other things that you all experienced? Just that you want folks to know about. Like, I just want to give you the space to, because you all came to me and you're like, I need to, for my own healing, I want to say, but I also want to warn people. I want people to know. What were some of the other behind the scene things that you think people
If
should
you
know?
leave staff, they tell people not to call you.
Mm.
When I had my incident, I was talking to people like, I was literally making 75 phone calls plus a day, only to all participants and then other people. I sat in my living room. No one called to see how I was doing. No one called to see if I was okay. No one called to make sure I didn't need anything. They kept it a secret because it's seen as a weakness for the organization if they have someone as high level as I was producing go out with a medical condition.
But
Mm.
also
I had one person called me and that was it.
it would make them look bad, like they did something wrong. And also, if people were allowed to call you, Jennifer, you would have had like 1,000 phone calls. And it's so unfortunate, like that you dealt with
That's
that by
right.
yourself. And like the amount of abuse of power, like if you were sick, I remember having like a strep throat, literally went to the doctor and I had the strep throat and I'm home. This is pre-COVID, so who cares if you have a sore throat, whatever. But I was pretty miserable and I'm like laying in my bed and I'm getting a call from my manager who is a total bully. Like this woman was like
Yep.
the most bulliest. I swear. Oh, she's like, you have a lot of work when you get back. You have phone calls to make. You need to get on the phones. And I'm like, I'm sick, dude. Like, it's just so crazy. And also like the person who was physically harming and basically assaulting, and I will use that word, Jennifer, okay, on several occasions. This is like the Oprah of the LA Center. This is a person, if Jennifer was to tell anybody that was going on, nobody would believe her. I didn't believe her when she told me because I'm like, I don't almost name her, but like, it's so and so. Like, she would never lie. What are you talking about? But then you know what? She would, because she used to shame me in staff meetings for it felt like hours. Like we
Yep.
would get out of the staff meeting in LA and in Europe, like the LA Center and New York Center is like, I would never worked at New York Center, but the LA Center is like top notch, highest caliber, most highest performing people. So you're like playing with the big dogs, and if you don't, you better get it together, like emotionally, all kinds of ways. Like I would go into these meetings and I would be super vulnerable and be like, I'm on it today. I like made a mistake or I didn't get my thing. And then I would just get it like so bad from the person who would physically beat up Jennifer. She one time, it was like it happened today. She's telling us this whole analogy about playing for the Yankees, the baseball team, and why do they play? What's their goal? What is their goal? And she's asking and you're all listening, everyone's listening because this is Oprah, right? So you're like, yeah, what this sounds great. Little did I know the whole analogy is to shame the shit out of me. So I'm like, baseball. I used to play baseball. Yeah, they play to win. Like, what do you mean? So she's like, they play not just to win. They play to win the World Series. That's the only reason they play. They aren't playing to win that game that day or win next month or win for the year. They're winning the World Series every single year. And she goes, and you want to know what happens if someone on the team strikes out? When they get back to the dugout, nobody talks to them or looks at them. And I'm just like, what is this? What? So you're saying that's what's going to happen to me in my role now? Like, y'all are gonna just treat me like a piece of shit because I shared and was honest that why I missed my result that day and tried to create like a empowering, vulnerable
Well,
situation.
there's a confusion there because in the programs, if you're in a forum, advanced course seminar, whatever, the name of the game is to be authentic where you've been inauthentic. It is to tell on yourself like that. And the one who kind of like does those are the stars of the program. So you go from that kind of environment where you're rewarded essentially for being authentic, for telling the truth, as it were, to then being shamed for that. Or we called it processing back in the day. It was called the pit, where it comes from. There's a book that came out recently that from somebody who was there at the very beginning. And if you all read that book, it's by Marsha Martin, you will understand that these behaviors are very baked in from the very first days of EST. And all these people, many of the staff members that you're talking about were very much a part of that lineage, the landmark lineage of being staff members prior to it being landmark worldwide and so on. So these behaviors were brought forward, but it's very confusing because in one place, sometimes you're rewarded for that kind of authenticity, but then it sounds like with this particular person, you were shamed essentially for that kind of. That's interesting. I hadn't heard that before. That's really yucky.
So I'm
Yeah.
gonna guess this person had 3 names.
Yep.
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 So I will say it's interesting you use Oprah as an analogy. Let's just be really clear. Oprah has been a net negative to society. Like we have Dr. Phil to thank for her. We have Dr. Oz to thank for her. We have all these charlatans to thank for her. She was a friend of Epstein. She was a friend of like that whole, like she has been a net negative, right? So like if you think of it like that, I would say that this three named person falls in the same world. Like,
And let's be clear, they're all copying Werner.
100%.
That's what I was trying to warn people about because once I got to working around him, and I didn't realize that because I didn't work in the centers. So I'm very happy to say I didn't directly experience any of this kind of stuff that you guys have experienced.
Oh, you missed out.
I did. I missed out. And my husband worked in the centers and he did. And I've been quite shocked at some of the stories he's now telling me, that he never told me before. And he's now doing work with a therapist on trauma, some trauma recovery work, just directly based on some of the experiences. So, but it's this belief that to get a result, you have to pressure, you have to and it's all in the name of performance. But it's abuse, people. It's abuse. So that's the line that I want to unconceal because I do think we can have transformation. We can have personal development, self-help. We can have those without the abuse. I do believe that still a tiny little bit. I have a little hope in my heart, but it's getting harder and harder the more of these stories I hear. But
Sorry to interrupt, but
go for it.
It's on what you're saying. Like I was put in a room with my manager and my manager's manager at least twice. I remember this happening where they put me in this office that nobody worked in. And it was just like the 3 of us and very small to the point where like we're all sitting on the floor. There's no furniture in there. And they're just asking me like, why am I on it? Quote, on it, like you're on your point of view, get off your point of view and get registrations, get your contacts, do your job, and I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm just tired from working for 40 fucking years straight, and not taking a break, and right, and it's like.
Well, and never mind. There's no lead list. There's no advertising. They're not giving you the resources. I remember even when I resigned, I did say to my manager, who I love. I mean, I still love her. She was a great lady, but I said, look, you're asking me to produce a year-over-year 10% increase, but you're not giving me leads. There's no funnel. The graduates. I'm like, okay, well, I can only talk to the ones that participated in the last 18 months. And I can only talk to the ones that the center manager that the centers don't want to talk to. And I can So you're really left scrapping. And I've been in sales all my life. And I just realized the other day, how really insane. I've never been in a sales job where they didn't, I used to sell carpet, right? That was where I learned sales. But she had carpet samples. They had a store. They ran ads. People came through the door. And unfortunately, it's gotten more common to create sales jobs where people have to bring all their own stuff. And so the exploitation of people and they're exploiting their personal networks, exploiting their need to survive and make a salary, exploiting has become more egregious, not less in our society. And that's what we got to start calling it out.
Yeah.
And we're calling it out on a company whose product is about having a world that works for everyone with no one and nothing left out. Like that's the kind of common refrain is that's what we're all there for. But yet we're being treated this way. And it takes a while to kind of sort out that difference.
Yeah.
Anything else you want folks to know in terms of experiences you had or just the kinds of things that you haven't been allowed to say or talk about that,
I will say one. I will say one other thing. So the two things about this particular conversation. So, same three name person. I watched chase around the center, trying to bite them and barking at them like a dog because they weren't producing results in their position. Right. As part of her department. So like I literally watched her like that and trying to bite
Yeah.
her, like trying to bite her shoulder. And the only reason she didn't bite her was because another staff member basically held her back. I got into I think the same room, the empty room, right? Was when I was there, there were 3 center managers working there because they couldn't figure out who was going to be the center manager. There was the quote unquote failing center manager, the former center manager who came back to take care of the center, and the new center manager who was going to take over for the failing center manager. So it was like 3 center managers. Who's in charge, right? And one of them, the male, there were 2 females, 1 male. The male, if you know me, you know who I'm talking about. Him and I would get into frequent shouting matches because he would throw things at me. He would throw things, try to hit me in my head to get that's how he got my attention. And I had to basically tell him, I don't know who you think you're who you're used to dealing with, but that ain't me, dude. Like you need to knock that off in much more not so nice terms. Like I'm not trying to make myself out to be a saint here because I'm not, but we had full on shouting matches in one of those empty rooms in the center because it was just like, this is ridiculous, dude. Like this is crazy. And there's more. I mean, there's so many more. And I still haven't gotten fired.
You hadn't, oh, okay. Wow. Can't wait to hear that. What actually got you fired? Are you ready to tell yet, or should we let Jennifer pipe in here a little bit?
Go ahead, pipe in. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's I ended up filing a workers' comp case against Landmark, and I got treated, and I got the help I needed. So I'm definitely now I've gone to work on myself to get myself back to where I used to be. But yeah, I think some people just need to choke on their own vomit.
How did you, so Jennifer, your story in part, so you're there and you're experiencing, if I understand, pretty much daily verbal abuse,
Yes.
verbal shaming, belittlement, like all that, some physical abuse as well. You're there. And I was very struck when you told me the story about going to the hospital with your TIA and you were tell us, you were on a cell phone, like, and they were
calling me saying,
yeah.
"Are you trading? Get yourself out of there." And the nurse said, "Give me the fucking phone." She's watching my blood pressure go. She goes, "Give me your phone. They're not calling you your phone."
That's the other thing is this idea that somehow you're intending that, you're causing that, like the polite saying is, who are you being that you're having a migraine? Who are you being that you're having
Yeah.
being is all of it and being is the answer, which is a big misnomer of that education all the way around. Being is a component, but we're also being influenced by all kinds of things, including being verbally and being massive, massive amounts of pressure without the resources needed to produce the result, like all those things. Anyway, because it was. So let's just talk about that for a second. Why did you finally leave? Because that's another thing people say all the time. Well, why didn't you leave? Like, how come you didn't just leave? Because virtually every staff member I know, I mean, I did resign, like I gave my year's notice and I left and all that kind of stuff. But then I just went to work hosting Warner. I didn't really fully leave the ecosystem until 2020 when essentially they threatened the people I was trying to do my next project with. They threatened me legally. So I always say I was ejected from the spaceship. And I found that to be true for most staff members. Something intervenes that gets you out of there. What got you, Kyla, what got you out?
Yeah, that's such an interesting that you said like something happens that ejects you out of there. I had a partner at the time who got a job in a different city. So I'm in LA. We both lived in LA and they got a job in Berkeley. And my family, and I'm from the Bay Area, so they were like, we should at least move somewhere where we have family. And that's how I left. And I gave my 6 months. I was like, I'll go work for some company that I thought like Lululemon was the place to be. And I started applying everywhere. I didn't get hired there. And they turned out to be not so great in the interview process, but whatever. And, yeah, and so thankfully I was just happened to be with someone who like got that job and moved, and then I slowly became successful. It took a while, especially like the grieving process that I didn't even know I was going through, to be like a landmark forum leader and letting that go, and like all of the things that I
Mhm.
thought were going, like the whole future I was going to have. But yeah, and I still have other stories that I didn't finish that were just bad. So I'll let you guys wrap it up. But if you want to hear any more.
Well, is there any ones in particular that you want this opportunity to say? You go for it. It's fine.
Sure. Yeah, like, so in that room, Tony, it's behind the front desk receptionist. Yeah. So in there, like, there were several occasions where, like, my manager and their manager, and my manager's manager was the one that was such a bully. This is not the 3 named person. This is a whole other person who I can't even with. And they would, like,
Was your
make.
manager sorry,
Yes.
cool.
But it's so easy to just know who I'm talking about, huh? So they would like just say horrible things to me, like, I don't know how you sleep at night, and just weird stuff. Like, they would call me odd all the time. And I'm like, oh, then I guess I must be odd because you think I'm odd. So I'm odd. Like, I really believed I was
Well,
odd.
remember, this is a coaching environment, right? So being in this, whether you're in a leader accountability or staff accountability, but as soon as you're in some sort of, accountable position in the organization, you agree to be coached. So even Warner's staff members, why we didn't, we saw him being screamed at and, it's different things. But it was always like, they agreed to that. They agreed. That's the kind of coaching we do here. No nonsense, no bullshit. Like, this is like elite coaching. No, it's abuse, people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's name calling. I was called there was a whole song they would sing together about me while I'm in the room alone with them. It was so weird. At the Newport Beach Center, I was called several times per day, a cunt slut whore. Quit being such a cunt slut whore and get your job done. And then we'd all laugh, and I'd go to my desk, and then I'd come back and hear it again. Then when I finally got the courage to tell the center manager's what the person above them, who is like untouchable, right, in the world of Landmark, when I finally got the courage to tell them, they said, oh, we're going to talk to the center manager. We're going to have a group call, and like, we're all going to address this. And when this is also after the center manager screamed, fuck you, like that to me, because of, I don't even remember what I did wrong. Like, I was breathing, or also didn't produce a result or something. And then we get on this speaker call. Remember, like, there's no Zoom back in 2009 or 2008, and we're on a conference call, and my center manager's boss is basically saying, hey, y'all, no pet names, no pet names, don't call each other pet name. I'm like, that's not a pet name. That was like straight up like the C word, dude. But I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it's a pet name. Like, fine, you called it a pet name. It's a fucking pet name because you're the boss, right? Like, and
Mm.
so it just kind of washed it down, dumbed it down to like, now it's just a pet name. It's not a big deal. And so it lasted for a week that my center manager stopped calling me that. And then a week later, we're back to business as usual, cunt slut whore all over again, until I ended up going to the LA Center. Like, this is asinine compared to what they're selling, right? And they have this whole distinction called a racket. So there's this whole like, oh, there's a store operating, but in the back they're like money laundering. Well, this is exactly what the whole fucking thing is. It's the definition of a racket. They're having these programs that most people also see as a scam, and then you go back behind the scenes and it's totally fucking dysfunctional and just absolutely wrong. It really is wrong. Like they say, like,
Mm.
morality or whatever, it's straight up wrong, and it's an abuse of power in all the ways. And if it comes from Warner, then it comes from Warner, but we're all like, it all, he's he that
Yeah, but
powerful.
in the end, everybody makes their own choice. Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's the part I think that's been so shocking for me is like, What? Why are we not calling this out? Because to me, I'm a bit of a Pollyanna. I'm like, this isn't our work. This isn't our work. What? Wait. What? Why don't we call this out? It's just been really, it's really interesting. I got it. Yeah. So thank you, Kyla, for sharing that and
Thanks
letting
for
us know.
listening. I'm good. Thank you.
I have a
Yeah.
couple. I just let me just interject these couple more little stories. So, Kyla, your I think you replaced a good friend of mine who was the seminar communicator in the LA Center, who had enough to the point where he walked out of a staff meeting, put his name tag on took it off, put it on the desk, walked out, threw his phone in the trash, went and bought a burner phone, bought a plane ticket, and flew out of the country and moved to Mexico. That's how he
Wow.
that's how he quit, right? He was just like, I'm done. And the only way that I know I'm going to be done is if I can't come back. So he literally like walked out of the center, bought a plane ticket, bought a new phone, and left. And he still lives like he lives, last I heard he was in Colombia. Like I can't keep up where he is, but he's constantly moving around Latin America, but he's just gone, right?
Mm.
And your former manager as well used to try to get me to comment on her, what she called epic tits, right?
Yep.
We're
Oh, that
having
was the other thing. All three of you shared these like weird, totally inappropriate sexual. What?
randomly. I don't understand like what I did that would have it be like okay that I would be like commenting on this woman's epic tits, but she kept trying to like goad me into it. And I was just like, I was like 21, 22 at the time, it's just
It's
bizarre.
gross. It's so
I just like
gross.
I
Well, this is one of the things when you take more. So, one of the things inside the work is like, well, we're talking about integrity. We're not talking about morality. Like, there is a bit of too much acceptance of things that are totally inappropriate because, well, we don't make things mean that.
Yeah.
We don't make that's just meaning. You're making that, if you're offended by that or you're oh, we're making that's again, there are many, 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 many staff members and people that work for this organization that do not, in fact, I would say the majority do not engage in this kind of behavior.
Yep.
But it's also an environment. And we're speaking for them today too, because we want them, many of them experienced or witnessed this and kind of they feel complicit in a way. I know this because a lot of them have talked to me, but they didn't do that. But there's also this environment seem to give permission to predators.
Yep.
These kinds of environments. And again, we've heard this in organizations, not just Landmark, but we've heard this in other organizations of different types, but where there is a kind of permission structure, because, well, it's a story. People are making it mean that. Like, that's how the distinctions, that's what they're called in Landmark, but the ideas get used to perpetrate really bad and inappropriate and harmful behavior. And that's what we want to call out because a lot of people don't recognize it. I mean, many of us, you're just shocked. You're so shocked when that stuff happens. You're like, and especially in that environment, because that environment is so about making a difference. It's about, a world that works for everyone. It's about we're all equal. But it's not actually. Got it. Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, Jennifer, did you have something to toss in the story pile?
Just the last part of like how I left. So, I went on a 6-week medical leave after my incident. While I was gone, they put someone else into the seat. And when I came back, they put me in homes. And it's during that time that I found all the secrets.
Oh.
I found notes that had been made by the previous person in that seat, the 3-letter name or a three-syllable name. And then I would have people come in and hand me registrations. They go, here. I go, well, this should go to the communicator because this is the Sponto. And they said, well, no, the person who used to make it a home so my stats would look good. So the whole 3 years I was there, and why I would get the early warning because I knew stuff was being stolen. That's how that person had their record year because she did that to me too. She goes, let's get you candidate. We'll just make this a home, even though it's a Sponto, and we'll make it a home and we'll make your stats look good and you can move
Yeah,
on.
that's because it was all there was the end result didn't matter. You had to have all the intimary results, so I have to have so many registrations that are just this kind and that kind and this other kind. Like, and if you don't meet the wholeness of that, then you don't get to progress or,
Right,
and you get abused. That's what you guys are revealing is there's not just the lack of reward, but there's actually abuse when you don't make the statistics, when you don't make the numbers.
yeah.
and by the
so it
woman,
started, yeah.
this
What?
is let's get this really clear. This is by the woman who is worshipped at that center was. Like, she
Yeah,
is a legend, a
I
legend.
found handwritten notes about staff members, handwritten notes that were like cheat sheets for where things were going for the home registration so that the numbers would look good and the tracking on the numbers.
But don't you think that was in part, I mean, I'm not gonna excuse this person, but I don't, it doesn't it seem like in an environment like this, lie, cheating, and stealing to make all the things so
Mhm.
that you like
Yeah,
that I
so
don't know there's any other way. I don't know there's any, but I don't know any staff members that didn't lie, cheat, and steal at something, and so, for the most part, because you can't progress, but you also can't, you also get abused, or you get called out, or you get processed. That was the polite term.
yeah,
But it
some
sounds like the LA center was probably one of the more abusive centers, and that's really sad. That's
yeah,
really, I mean, that's just really sad,
and
actually.
then it ended up sending me down another road, where I took another leave of absence and, 'cause I started getting sick again. 'Cause
Mm.
remember the landmark cough? Everyone had the cough in that center? Yeah. Did you know that they brought out OSHA or someone to come do they brought out someone to do a reading of the air? Never gave us the results, but 2 months later, they moved. They moved the whole operation 2 months later. But yeah, and, I got sick and then I was out for again, and the person who took over for a longer term, a center manager, called me up and said, "So are you coming back or when you come back?" Which is a violation apparently of the workers' comp. I got workers' comp, they're not supposed to call me. Or go on leave, they're not supposed to call me, ask me if I'm coming back. That's a violation. And I go, "I don't know if I'm gonna be able to come back." And I said, "I think this is it." And
Mm.
that was July 2nd or July 3rd of 2012. That was my freedom. And then I ended up to spend the rest of the going to court, or not court, being depositioned and having to retell this over and over again, which was not good for my headspace at that time, but having to tell like over and over again.
Well, this is an important part, because also a lot of people who haven't experienced this, they're like, well, wait, why are you not, it's like they say it takes 7 to 10 years, somebody who's been victimized by this kind of, verbal and physical abuse and assault, to even get to the place to say that happened to me, let
Yeah,
alone what happened. But our
yeah.
legal system, our accountability systems actually require something else. So what was that like for you? Having, doing those depositions and all of that.
So
What was that?
when I was finally able as part of the process, able to get mental health help, I was diagnosed with PTSD, major depression, suicidal, got put on medications right away, and talk therapy, and um, just going over and over is just, and then going, but no, it's really great. You get like you're saying, oh, but the good things that happened, no, it wasn't that bad. It's just me. No, I just wasn't. It was me and my integrity. So I was still in that conversation saying, no, Law Reform's a great program. Just don't go on staff.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's not the work, it's the organization. It's yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's another thing. And I appreciate what you're
Yeah, but
expressing too
it
about
was
it's just
rough.
me. That's kind of how you're conditioned. It is always whatever isn't happening that they want to happen or should be happen is because there's something going on with you in your psyche, in your beingness. If you were
Yeah,
just being some other way, then those results would happen. And that's being is an important and valuable thing. Like, yes, it's actually not being that we have control over. We have control over how we view things. We don't actually have a lot of control over how we're being, but we do have, we can choose how we're going to see a situation. So,
yeah,
but that also can be weaponized by perpetrators, by
yeah,
predators. I'm not harassing you. I didn't really hit you. That was just a love tap. I remember when Eric Rojas shared about being, his center manager putting his hands around his throat and squeezing, saying, you got to make the target. You got to make the target. And the first time he told me the story, he goes, well, he was just kind of joking. And I'm like, did he put his hands around your throat and squeeze? Well, yeah. I'm like, okay, dude, that is strangulation. That's like illegal. That's assault. Anybody who threatens your air, that's assault. But when you're in these environments, it's so normal, and so that's another piece that gets in there. But that's really amazing, Jennifer. And I think you told me something about the stenographers like had to take a break. The people who were
yeah.
transcribing.
During one of the depositions, they were just like shaking their head. I'm telling them like every detail, everything that happened from soup to nuts all the way through. And one star says goes, I need to take a break. It was just a lot. It was a
Mm.
lot. It was a lot for her to listen to.
And Anything else that you guys want to tell? And then I just have a couple more questions. And my main question is, why do you want people to know this now? Like, why are you saying this now? For you. I don't want to put, why do you think it's important for you and for people to know?
I know for myself, I've gotten therapy now. I've like started to like heal. Excuse me. I've started to like heal myself from the years, and it took a long time to even get to the point where I could admit that I had a problem, right? And like I've talked about, it was an important time of my life. Like I met my wife through it. I have this child as a result of it, right? So like I can't completely discount it, but at the same time, I also want people to know that if you do a search for landmark, you find all those negative reviews, all those negative things, and you're kind of taught to dismiss them. Don't dismiss them. Is ultimately the like look at it from critically, right? Like there is a reason why for some people it's not a good thing. There is a reason why it's like, and I would say overall it's a net negative, and I want people just to be aware of that. Like that's what I want. I want people to know what they're actually getting into, not just what they're being marketed that they're getting into.
Okay. Thank you. Jennifer?
This organization is not the only organization that does this. It's just, Landmark talks about they're just hypocrites.
Mm.
There's such a hypocrisy. But what I know now, like in my current job, with the current company I'm working for, conversation I had with boss, have to have overtime. That's why you just lost 3 managers in her region. I said, just, pull up your results. And I said, how's it that all these locations that you have are in the top 5% of labor? It's because your salary managers are being taken advantage of. Companies will take advantage of salary people. They just
Mhm.
will.
It's baked in.
And it's a lesson learned from what's happened with Landmark, but there are also places where it also happens. Having the awareness that you don't, because your salary does not mean you get to be abused. Because you love your boss does not mean you get to be abused. Because you believe in an organization, what they're up to does not mean you get to be abused. Ever, ever.
Okay. Thank you. Kyla?
Yeah, the only reason I reached out is because of Brandon's podcast. So when I was leaving staff in LA, Brandon was entering staff. And I thought, my goodness, if that guy got abused, I'm so heartbroken. Like, it's not like anyone should be abused, but if anyone was, it wasn't him. Like, the guy was like, and is
Yeah.
just so just lovely and amazing. I'm like, why would they do that to him? What the hell? And then I thought, shit, they did it to probably the majority of the staff. Like, this is a thing, and I had no idea. And I thought I was the problem. I thought I did something wrong, you know?
Mm-mm.
And so, yeah, did I do some wrong things? Yeah. Did I lie, by the way? Yes, I lied about the number of contacts that I made for the day, just so I didn't get yelled at for the 40th time. But like, once I saw Brandon and I couldn't believe it. And I didn't know that you wrote a book, and I didn't know that you exposed them. And I was just like, finally, the day has come. Like, I never thought this would ever happen. Who would speak poorly of the way it was run or anything? And so I was so shocked and so also relieved at the same time that I had to like reach out.
Mm.
And I don't even know Brandon that well from since then. And I was just like, I felt like I knew him like better than ever because of I listened to his podcast and just knowing what happened. And I just really appreciate you and thank you for doing this and asking us like what this was like and caring about our healing and being like so courageous to write a book and know that it could come back to bite you in some way or what. And
I wish I'd known. I thank you. I appreciate that, and I accept the acknowledgement. But it's so funny now. I think of I don't know if you've since read the book or whatnot, but I don't really talk about any of this because I didn't know actually that this was so rampant. I was really trying to warn the organization about retying itself to Werner and to have us question because they're really. I saw a lot of what I thought was a lot of good work happen there. And, I'm questioning some of that now in terms of its actual long range impact. But it's like, if we can't question ourselves, we are a cult. Like, come on. That's, if you can't question the leadership, if you can't question yourself, if you can't, then you are being manipulated, in my view. You are we are entrapped in a fixed reality. And the whole way I understood the work of Landmark was that there is no reality that's fixed like that. But there is morality too. That is the other thing I want to say. People tell me, oh, you're against transformation. I'm like, not at all. I'm playing with Ed Gerwitz to see, can we actually use transformational methodologies and have them have a real impact without all the bullshit? And, we're kind of having some fun playing with that. But I'm not against transformation, but I am against abuse. And I now see exploitation. Jennifer, thank you for saying what you're saying too. I see exploitation is so normalized in our society. If we just shed a light on a little bit and we just level up just a little bit, that's actually making life better. No, you don't have to work 80, 90 hours a week. You shouldn't have to just try to survive. You don't have to put up with abuse to produce. In fact, all the studies show that that's actually, we've done a lot of neurological studies, a lot of work now that's been done, and we actually see that freezes the brain. It doesn't free it up, which is what the people of Werner's era, and not just him, by the way, he's the product of his era too, that believe that kind of screaming, yelling, name calling, humiliation, all of that kind of stuff, their justification is that that's somehow going to make you a superhuman. Well, we now know that's not true. We know that that's not true. And I really applaud you guys for the healing work you've done, I don't let people come on who don't have support and healing behind them. So all y'all have that. And I want to take this moment to give a little shout out to I call it healthy healing. And it's a little bit of my joke because I thought I was healing a lot of stuff at Landmark. And I've since learned actually my Landmark participation gave me an opportunity to suppress it and repress it. And I did work through some things. So yes, I'm not going to deny that either, but doing this work with Rachel Bernstein in this group we're hosting, which we host is on a sliding scale. If anybody's out there or anybody who is kind of on their own, they're thinking it was their fault, it was something that was wrong with them, or they're just confused at how can a group that's about making a difference be so cruel to its own staff? Whatever. This is a great group. You can come. We talk about it. We talk about all of it. There's people in the group that are from other groups. So we're starting to learn how these kinds of behaviors and practices really spread throughout the not just personal development industry, but industries in general. Workplaces have been very challenging. So just a shout out for the Healthy Healing with Rachel Bernstein. It's always in the show notes. I'm committed to making that available, and she's absolutely wonderful. So any last words or anything that you guys want to say as we wrap up here?
It wasn't just you. It wasn't just you. If you experience something like this, believe me, there are thousands of other people out there who are dealing with the same thing, thinking it was just them. It wasn't just you.
I think I want people to know too, it won't go away because you leave the abuse does not leave you. You got to work with it a little bit, and you got to do that with people who know how to do that. A therapist, a coach, whatever, NAMI, a National Association for Mental Illness has amazing free resources. I just talked to a lot of people who are like, well, yeah, that was bad, but there was a lot of good and I left, so it's over. And that's true. It is over, but it impacted you. It changed your brain, actually. They have evidence now that kind of abuse literally changes your thinking patterns. And we can see that, Jennifer, in your brave story so much. It changed how you thought about yourself. And you've done a lot of work to change that. So some people know it doesn't just go away because you went away. You got to come talk about it. Please reach out to us. We've got lots of resources and ways you can do it that are comfortable for you.
Also, if you're participating in anything where everyone keeps asking or wondering if something's a cult and they keep saying, no, it's not a cult, it's not a cult, it's not a cult. Don't say drink the Kool-Aid. That's offensive. Don't say that because you don't know what happened when they really drank the Kool-Aid back in because that was a thing, right? It actually happened, people died. But if it's being talked about and you're asking yourself or someone's asking you that so many times, and it's very common that that's being talked about, the chances are it's a freaking cult. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, it's so funny. People got so upset with me for using the C word. I'm like, but everybody's been using that word since 9. Jennifer, anything for you?
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you guys so much. It takes a lot to come on and share this stuff and to, just look back at it through for yourself, just personally. So Thank you. And, these are our stories. These are our experiences. We're responsible for them. And I think my final word is believe the victims. Just because the victims are speaking out does not mean they are trapped in a victim mindset. It means that they're speaking out and they're moving out of that role that they were put in by perpetrators that perpetrated abuse. So, yeah, thanks for speaking out. And it's just really great to be with you guys. And we'll see what comes.
Awesome. Great.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Tony.